The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you a songwriter? Are you looking to turn your songwriting passion into a full-time gig? Whether you are just at the start of your songwriting journey or a seasoned industry professional, this show is made for you. Welcome to the Songwriter Show, bringing together songwriting news, interviews, and community. Now, welcome your host, Sarantos.
Good evening, everyone. This is Sarantos. Another happy Tuesday night to everybody. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today, and I welcome you back wholeheartedly to the Songwriter Show. I'm your host, Sarantos, a solo music artist who's been writing lyrics for as long as I can remember. Words are so important to me, and that's why I love hosting this show. I strongly believe that every single song is a story. The Songwriter Show is broadcast live on number one ranked W4CY Radio with listeners in all 206 countries in the world and every state in the U.S. The station is licensed with ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, Sound Exchange, and has many partnerships and syndications throughout the music industry, including iHeartRadio and exposure to over 300 million listeners. Tonight's first guest is Marvin Wilson. Marvin is a self-described old hippie rock and roller who's been a lifelong musician. He's written hundreds of songs in many different genres: rock, rhythm and blues, folk rock, rockabilly, Christian rock, and many others. While now semi-retired, he continues to write music as well as write books, and he does professional editing for other authors. He co-owns and operates a website designed to give free publishing and promotion on a global scale to little-known but worthy up-and-coming artists. Welcome to the show, Marvin.
Sarantos, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome, man. So you've got an interesting story. Tell me about this hippie rock and roller. How'd you get that label?
Well, I grew up, I went to college in the late 60s, which was, when the hippie era was burgeoning. And I was one of those people that tuned in, turned on, and dropped out. I don't know if the younger listeners will know what that means. But it was the religion of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and we were going to change the world with our music. And after a couple of years of college, I dropped out, joined a rock and roll band, and went off on a 15-year journey that I'm glad I survived.
You're glad you survived. That's awesome, yeah. So for anybody that's living in this era, 2019, what advice do you have for them? What's life now like musically compared to your era, the 60s and 70s?
Oh, it's changed so much, Sarantos. Back then, a group could do pretty much anything as long as they did it well. And groups like the Grateful Dead or other bands they did cross-genre music. And just sort of anything goes. You could even jam. Nowadays, it's formula music. It's like, what do you do? What's your shtick? What's your brand? You've got to do a certain thing, and that thing has to catch on. And of course, you have to be, unless you're connected somehow, you're not going to get picked up. It's tougher. It was not easy to get recognized back then, but it's even harder today. I think songwriters today are facing it's quite a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. It's it's a challenge, and it's good in some ways, worse in others, but all we can do is kind of roll with it, my friend.
Absolutely. Yeah. No matter what the time and era, good music will rise to the top.
That's so true. I've actually been reading the Beatles documentary from I'm losing track of his name. The reporter that followed them, and he kept talking. It was a great. It's a great book. I'm about halfway through it, and the one thing that keeps sticking to me is, there was this buzz and people were going crazy and security was overwhelmed. But at the end of the day, it was the music. It was the music that people that kept rising to the top. And that's really what got them where they were. And I think what you just said is very, very important.
Well, and you bring up the Beatles, which, of course, they are what set me off on my journey. When they invaded the U.S. in 1963 on the Ed Sullivan Show, I watched that, and that sound was so unique, so brand new, so fresh and crisp and exciting. It was a sound nobody had ever heard before. Boy, I looked at that and said, man, I can't just watch that. I got to do that.
Yeah.
But, and then to watch them develop as songwriters, starting out with these simple little ditties like Love Me Do and She Loves You, it turned into these fabulous music songwriters, Eleanor Rigby and coming out with the White Album, which started a whole new trend where the entire album is a sort of a symphony with different movements, segued together.
Yeah.
They were. I can't point to any other single group that did so much to set trends and change pop music forever.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm a big Beatles fan, more so the older I get, actually. Yeah. So I was going to ask you which famous musicians you admire. Is it the Beatles? Are they number one?
Yeah, I'd say the Beatles. I like, in the rock idiom, I like Aerosmith. I think the way they do rock and roll was instead of just blocking out chords, they had these great riffs going on, and they created a fresh new sound. Back in the old days, my favorite bands were like the Grateful Dead, Creedence Clearwater Revival. Some of those. The thing I loved about music back then was the songs were written for a reason. There was meaning. There was purpose. There was a movement going on, and I just hated when the disco era came in. It was all about bump and grind and sex and do me baby and all that sort of stuff. So, and I think as much as I didn't like rap music when it came out, the more I looked into it, and some of the artists like Tupac and so forth, they were poetic. They were saying something.
Yeah, definitely.
And, so, there is good music today, just like there always is. But I think you just have to look for it a little bit harder today.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, our listeners are overwhelmed with you because we've got about 10 comments here. They sung without auto-tune, real singing. Why can't it just be playing good music that people like? It's amazing. But I think it's interesting because even the younger crowd, with Spotify and Apple Music, they're rediscovering. I personally love the 80s, but even what you said, the 60s, 70s, there's a lot of songs I really respect. And I think a lot of the younger generation, they know some of these songs, and I'm like, where in the world did you find this? And they're finding them. They're finding them on Spotify and Apple Music.
Yeah. It reminds me of when my son he's a grown man now, but I think he was 16 or so when I turned him on to the Beatles. And at the time he was into rap music. But he was just astounded. He said, Dad, this is wonderful. Why didn't you show me this?
Yeah.
Show me this before, Maxwell's Silver Hammer, came down upon her head. Do-do-do-do-do. I mean, the frivolity of the way they delivered those strong lines.
Yeah. So Marvin, tell us a little bit about your songwriting process. How do you start? How do you decide what song you're going to cut? Tell us a little bit about your process.
Sarantos, I go at it. There's two different ways. One is, I'm a guitar player. That's my main instrument. I fool around on piano and I'm a bass player, but guitar is what I write on, which I don't really recommend. Piano is the best instrument, but I'm not a good enough pianist to write on. But I'm fooling around on my guitar and I come across a chord progression that just rings, the changes are good. They meld together nicely. And then a melody pops to mind. And then that will inspire lyrics to come. That's one way. The other way is I'm a writer and a bit of a poet myself. And you write a poem or something of a poetic nature. And then that inspires the music to come out of that. And by the way, to me, and I think you'll agree with me as I heard your introduction, the best songs out there of all times, you can pull the lyrics out and they will stand on their own as a poem. Something with meaning, with inspiration and intent.
Yeah, it's a story. It's
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
A song should tell a story.
Yeah. So you've been around a few years, and we'll get to your website in a little bit, but tell us, I always ask every guest about scams in the industry. Warn us about something that's happened to you or something you've heard about, because, I like to protect all the artists because there's a lot of people out there trying to take advantage of us.
I have never been scammed in the music industry. If there's any writers out there, any authors out there, look out for publishers, Publish America. There's a lot of, they say, hey, we want to publish your book, but you find out they don't give you any kind of publicity, or they charge you money. Here's the thing. This music, books, whatever, if you log onto a site that says, and you send them their sample and say, hey, we love it, give us $2,000 and we'll publish you, and promote you. That's a warning sign right there.
Yeah.
If they love it, they'll publish you for free and pay you to do it. So don't be taken by these deals that you see where, all you got to do is cough up $500, $1,500, $2,000 and we'll make you a star. That's not going to work.
Yeah, I think that's a great giveaway. I mean, if they love you, if they love your music, your books, not only should they want to sign you and publish you, shouldn't they give you money and hook you up with managers and marketing and people that are going to take you to the next level? I mean, isn't that what they're supposed to do?
Exactly. That's what they are supposed to do. Yeah. But again, especially with the internet age, anybody can post anything on the internet, and just to do your due diligence. Google that company, read the reviews before you shell out any money.
Yeah. Tell me, what have you been most satisfied with in your life?
Being a musician was very satisfying. Raising a family was satisfying. Becoming a book author was satisfying. I've been blessed, Sorrentos. I'm not a wealthy man. I'm still having to work to make a living, but life has been good. I've known love. I've known success. I've known failure. And I guess I'm just overall satisfied.
You know what? It's very, listening to the empathy in your voice, I could tell you're sincere, and I'm very happy for you. Well, and I think part of that might also be, I think a lot of us are chasing our own tails sometimes. It sounds like you also understand what you've gone through and what you have, because I think sometimes, especially maybe when we're younger, we don't quite get it. It's a blur, and then you look back and you're like, wow, that was a great time. So
yeah. When you're young, you think you're immortal, and you think you're right about everything. And it's just, you can't do any wrong. And even if you do, so what? We got tomorrow and the next day and a million years to go. But, you get it in that attitude starts getting tempered when you get out in the real world, and then you're in your 30s and you're raising a family and you have bills, and by the time you're 40 and then 50, and then now time's starting to, you remember when birthdays were a big deal? Hey, I'm 5. Yay, I'm 6. Yay, I'm 7. Well, and they birthdays were like, oh, it took so long to get there. But now, my age, it's like birthday. Coming so fast, it's like, wow, can I slow this down? I really want to enjoy these golden years.
Yeah, I hear you. Tell me about, what's the thing you dread doing every week? Is there a certain activity, whether it's anything? It could be financial, marketing, it could be anything. What do you dread doing?
What do I dread doing? Let's see. I dread... I dread. Okay, I dread. It's not really a dread. Worrying over financial matters. I dread worrying, because worrying is like praying for bad things to happen. I'm a bit of a law of attraction kind of a guy. Sure. And if I catch myself worrying, I say, hey, Marvin, stop it. Okay. Focus on what you got. Focus on your blessings. Focus on what you have. That's what the universe is going to give you more of. If you're worried about bills, if you're worried about how you're going to buy that car you need, it's just going to get harder to get. So I dread worrying.
Okay. How about like a favorite restaurant that no one else knows about in your area? Anything a hidden gem? Anything you recommend?
I'm new to this area, so I can't really answer that with Sorrento's. I'm a Michigander, and I just moved down here a little less than a year ago to be with my partner. We're doing this website together that we're going to talk about. No, I mean, if you're in Goldsboro, North Carolina, there's a place called Japanese Hibachi Buffet. It's near the Berkeley Mall, and they have a buffet that is, I think it's only like $12, all you can eat. Outstanding. They have the Japanese hibachi, they have sushi, they have all these different Asian dishes, and that would be a place I could recommend, even though I've not. There's probably some other really cool places I haven't found yet, but that's one I could mention.
I'll tell you what, Marvin, why don't you tell us a little bit about where our listeners can find your music, where they can buy it, and then lastly, tell us about this website before we hear your song.
Well, they're kind of both the same thing. My latest CD I did, I wanted to do something with Christian rock, and I'm not a religious person. I hope you still love me. I would describe myself as more of a non-religious spiritualist Christian. I just love the teachings of Jesus. And when I listen to, the last 20 years, churches have been trying to up their appeal with these praise bands and the advent of Christian rock. And when I listen to it, I just get it just seems so formula driven to me. It's always the same instrumentation, the same four chords, same sort of style and architecture, if you will. So I wanted to do something different, and I said, let's go back to good old rock and roll. And I said, I did the whole Christian CD with in rock and roll, blues, rhythm and blues, rockabilly, even a big band swing jazz rock piece. And that's available on this website that my partner and I have set up. What we wanted to do, Billy, my partner, and I saw a need for little-known but worthy up-and-coming artists, musicians, book authors, artsy filmmakers, whatever. It's really difficult to get noticed, to get published, to get picked up by the big publishing companies. And if they do pick you up, they're going to own you. They're going to make most of the money. They're going to tell you what you're going to wear, what you're going to sing, and where you're going to play, and so forth. So we thought we'd offer this website that gives it's a free, no strings attached offer to be published and promoted on a global scale. We have authors from all over the world, right? Artists, people logging on from all over the world. It's called Publishing for the People. And that's publishing the number 4, the people, publishingforthepeople.com. And 4 stands for 4-way win, which means, the artists win because they're getting published and promoted for free. And it's no strings attached. They can still self-publish if they want. They can still create their own CDs, sell them at their gigs, whatever. The people win because they get exposed to new, fresh artists that they probably would have never known about. We have people from Australia, Africa, Europe, whatever. And we also pay back to the people. In the normal publishing industry, the consumer, the buyer, right? That's what drives the market. They're shelling out the bucks, but nothing comes back to them other than that one CD or book or whatever. We actually pay the people who help us promote our artists. You can log onto our site, donate to one of the art lots, get a download of a CD or an ebook, and then invite other people to the site and say, hey, you got to check out this song or this CD I got on this website. And if they donate, you earn points. It's kind of like a Facebook social networking thing where you can play these promotional games and interact with other people and make points. And the people who earn the most points, we pay them, out of the money that's raised. You can make $20, $40, $60, $100, even $1,000 for helping us promote these artists. So the people win. Charities win because we give 10% of all revenues raised to a favorite charity, and the people get to vote on which charity. We have a list of them. The charity gets the most votes gets the donation, and then the next one moves up and keeps the amount of votes they got. So everyone gets a chance to get the donation. And the fourth win is the company. We win, but we only take 14% of all JEP revenues raised. And we operate on that, which is a far cry from what the big publishing companies take. So I would just encourage if you're a musician out there and you'd like to get some free publicity, please log on to publishingforthepeople.com. That's publishing, the number 4, thepeople.com. There's a banner right at the top says, artists, click here if you want to become published. If you go to another page, there'll be a pop-up that comes up and says, are you an artist? Would you like to be promoted? And it takes you to a simple sign-up page. You fill out some information, send us a sample. We can't just put any crap up there, of course. So we do review the submissions, but and it doesn't have to be a finished product. If you need money so you can get into a studio and polish up your product, hey, send us what you got. If we hear talent there, we'll publish you and we'll help you get promoted and raise you a couple $1,000 so you can go into that studio and polish your product up. So finished product or, diamond in the rough, we're still here to help you. We just want to help.
That's wonderful and very noble, Marvin. All right. We're going to listen to your song now, and I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. You have a wonderful night, Marvin.
Thank you. I appreciate being on Sarantos.
Okay, you're welcome. Here we go.
It's a miracle one-on-one. If you really want to try, but you still can't buy it, I can give a little tip in a hand. There's a light so bright it can blind you at night. If you want to see it now, you can. Guided by the light, the way it's shining bright. Well, you ain't really lived till you kiss my God with the stars lit up at night. Sun shines every day, moonlight leads the way. It's a sure thing day and night when you're guided by the light. There's a big light shining on a new horizon since I opened up my eyes one day. If you still can't see it, I can help you feel it if you just walk over this way. No, it ain't self-help, you can help yourself to a helping from the great divine. Get your good God on from right now on, he'll be with you all the time. Guided by the light, the way it's shining bright. Well, you ain't really lived till you kiss my God with the stars lit up at night. Sun shines every day, moonlight leads the way. It's a sure thing day and night when you're guided by the light. And inject you with the one or no time. When you come to your senses, you'll be counting your blessings with the light shining from you inside. Guided by the light, the way it's shining bright.
I think that was a keeper.
Yeah.
And now, welcome this week's special guest.
So our second guest for tonight's show is John Vento. John's a Pittsburgh-based veteran rocker and leader of Ned's Hotel Band. His new album came out in January, and it's on a soundtrack to a musical production written by renowned playwright Amy Hartman. He's also a cancer survivor. Welcome to the show, John. How are you doing tonight?
All right, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So you have a little bit of an interesting story. Tell us a little bit about the cancer survivor thing. That's always fascinating to me because my dad passed away from lung cancer. So I'd like to start off with that question, if you're okay with it.
Sure, absolutely. And I also lost my father at 59 to lung cancer. So it's prevalent in our family. But my gift was kidney cancer. And it just kind of happened out of the blue about a little over 2 years ago. And I was so blessed and so lucky that we caught it just in time. I learned later, after the surgery and everything that happened so quickly, that I probably had it for over 3 years, based on the size of the tumor.
Wow.
And my left kidney was completely removed, and thankfully it wasn't anywhere else. And I didn't have to deal with chemo or radiation. So many people do. And as you probably know, I'm sure you do, kidney cancer can move quickly and turn into lung. It can move to your lungs, even though it's not lung cancer. I learned a lot about it. So I feel very blessed and fortunate and lucky. And ironically, it all happened just as I was starting this new project. I had started the tracking about 2 months prior to the diagnosis. And needless to say, that on one hand, it put everything on hold. On the other hand, it was an opportunity to refocus the messaging, in the music.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely relate, and we'll talk about the music now. But man, I had a kidney stone a couple weeks ago, and it was the worst thing I ever went through in my entire life. Yeah. So I just heard you say that thing. I heard kidney, and I just had like a flashback. So tell us a little bit about your instrument. What instrument do you play? Do you sing?
Well, I sing.
What's your thing?
I sing. Okay. I contribute with writing and arrangements and so on, and have been blessed to surround myself and work with some wonderful musicians. On this project, a great producer, Dave Granati, who's well known in the Pittsburgh area. But my thing is primarily as a singer and a performer.
Okay. And do you, in terms of singing and writing and arrangement, are you a melody guy? Are you a lyricist, or a little bit of both?
Probably more of a lyricist first. Even though on this project I brought in a co-writer, a guy named Bert Lobo, who really drove many of the lyrics, and I became more of the editor. Which recordings over the years, it's quite the opposite. That I drive the characters and the stories of the songs, and then I get tweaked with collaborators. So I'm primarily a lyricist, and then I contribute with melodies, but I think probably I'm stronger in arrangements and really, really fine-tuning the finished product with some instinctive ideas that, make things feel better and sound better in the end.
Okay. Any influence by any certain genre?
Yeah, I think, on this project, I'm a rock and roller. So, I like the British Invasion. Eric Burdon is my hero, Eric Burdon and the Animals. I'm a Bob Seger, Bruce Springsteen, the Led Zeppelin. I grew up on all that stuff. But for this project, the influence was probably a lot more eclectic, more folk-oriented. Guys like Harry Chapin and James Taylor and those kind of guys. And Tweedy was a big influence especially on Bert, who was one of our collaborators. So I would say that this was a departure than what I typically would do.
Okay. Tell us, what's the typical week like for you now? Are you full-time music, or do you have a part-time job also on the side? I mean, what's the typical week like for you?
Well, I'm a juggler, and a typical week for me is music and business combined. So, I own a small business. We employ about 50 people in the world of office furniture, and I'm also blessed to be involved with a couple other small businesses and a 501(c) charity, which involves music programs for autistic kids called Band Together Pittsburgh.
Wonderful.
Which is, we love it. It's so much fun. We have open mics and performances, and we have a music camp coming up this summer where we're bringing the kids to a studio, and so that's really a passion. And then music it's 24/7, even though you may not physically be there 24/7. It's hard to ever turn it off. Like tonight, we're here we are on the phone, and I probably could be doing some homework or some reviewing some financial statements. I'd rather be with you talking about music.
Yeah, I hear you. Before I forget to tell you, please, after the show, email me some information on the charity, because I pick a different charity for every song, and I donate proceeds from that song. So it sounds like a great charity, and I'd love to be involved. So if you can email that to me separately,
thank you.
I'd love that.
I promise you I will. I'll send you our website. You'll like see videos of these kids. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. What's your favorite jam of all time? 80s, 90s, what decade, and what is it?
Wow. I'd have to say, from a decade standpoint, it would probably be the 60s, even though I was a baby. I was born in the 60s, but I was certainly a baby. The other day, we my girlfriend and I were at dinner, and all of a sudden she started talking about the Fifth Dimension, and, Marilyn McCoo.
Yeah.
And we went home and watched Fifth Dimension YouTube songs for an hour, The Age of Aquarius and all that. And from that, we went to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and then jumped over to the Beach Boys, and then went to the Beatles. And I mean, my God, to Hendrix. Yeah. I just think that was the golden age. To Sinatra.
Especially for rock.
How about Neil Sedaka? Rock and all kinds of just great music, great production. The Wrecking Crew out in L.A. And, of course, Hal Blaine, the great drummer, died last week. And, it's just amazing, the music that was produced in that era. And there were so many breakthroughs in rock. Well,
I think you and I are going to be bringing rock back this decade, man. So we're just going to keep chugging along here. So we have a fan question. One of the listeners wants to know, do you tour?
I tour regionally. I wouldn't necessarily call it a tour. I'd love to do more. I'm calling you on the way back from Central Pennsylvania. We performed on a television program today, an acoustic performance with my friend and the producer of the album, guitarist David Granati. We played up in Cleveland, and so I'll say regionally. The album just came out a few months ago, and next week we're going to be up in North Central PA. So I guess the answer is a kinda.
Yeah.
I wish we could do more.
Okay. What do you have a spirit animal? Something that people equate you with?
Wow, that's a great question. I don't know. Maybe can I pick one?
Yeah, you could pick one.
How about a leopard?
A leopard, okay. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you want to be a leopard?
Yeah, because a leopard's versatile and interesting with all kinds of, well, not different colors, but certainly different textures and characteristics, and can be warm and fuzzy most of the time. But on the other hand, be careful.
Yeah, don't mess with them.
That's right. Don't mess with a leopard.
Yeah. What inspires you, John?
Well, my family and my children inspire me, of course. They're the priority, and my faith. And I'm working hard on my faith. And just 2.5 years ago, dove into my Christian faith a little more. Of course, it was around the time of my diagnosis. Sure. And the love of people. And I'm so blessed in my work and in my music to be surrounded and just to have such great, wonderful people where their hearts are just beautiful. And I think specifically these new programs with Band Together Pittsburgh and the music with autistic kids is a real source of motivation.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You know, you mentioned family. I want you to reveal to our audience any family secret recipes that grandma or your wife or whoever don't want you to reveal to us. Reveal something to us about some secret recipe.
Well, I don't know the specifics, but as an Italian, my mother was famous for her pizzelles. Do you know what a pizzelle is?
No. What's a pizzelle?
It's a cookie. Well, it's a cookie. It's like a waffle-shaped cookie.
Oh, I know what that is.
Her recipe, right? You've seen them. And so just last week, my brother, he found my mother's old recipe and made a batch of pizzelles, and it brought tears to my eyes because my mother died at a very young age, and she's been gone for over 40 years.
Wow.
And it was really magical. So he found an old newspaper article from 1976 where her recipe was in the paper for her pizzelles.
Wow.
So it's funny you asked that question when that just came up this week.
Well, I'm psychic and I do my research, but no, I'm just teasing.
You must have ESPN.
So what rocker would you name as a perfect 10?
Wow, I don't know if there is such a thing. That's a really great question. You know, we were talking about Todd Rundgren today. From a production standpoint, I'd say that Todd Rundgren's a perfect 10. From a performance standpoint, you know, you probably got to go with Springsteen. And maybe from the total package of a guy that I love to see and listen to is probably Bob Seger. You know, he just gives you hooks and hits and delivers a nice show and plays what you want to hear. So I don't know about a perfect 10, but they're all so great, you know. I have so much respect for their art.
Okay. John, tell us, where can our listeners find out information about you or about your songs?
Well, I'm on the social media stuff, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook as John Vento Music. And that's Vento, John Vento Music. And then my website, johnvento.com, where they can actually download. I've got all my MP3s up there, and I have a little thing called Take What You Want and Leave What You Can, which means you can take all the music and enjoy it, or if you want to leave a donation, that's great too. The platform is set up that way. Okay.
We're going to listen to one of your songs here in a couple of minutes. Tell us a little bit about the song, the inspiration behind it, and what it means to you.
Sure. Rainbows and Lightning. Well, I think it's the perfect combination of where we were going with this project. Of course, it's the album is titled Love, Lust, and Other Wreckage, which could be the story of my life and maybe some others also. And this song, Rainbows and Lightning, was something we really struggled with all the way to the end of the project. And I went on a little drive with the co-writer and the female vocalist on the project, Cheryl Ann Hawk. And again, we were just struggling to try to make this thing work. And we drove into this storm on the highway. And truth be told, it was a horrible rainstorm. And then there was a rainbow. And then next thing I know, we got lightning bolts bouncing off the rainbow. And we looked at each other and said, there's our song. And it represents the ups and downs of a relationship. You know, love is beautiful and warm and friendly. But along the way, you get some lightning bolts that can sure screw things up. And that's why at the end of the song, it takes a hard left turn and goes into rock and roll.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds awesome, man. And any last bits of advice for me? Anything you want to teach me in the next minute that I don't know?
No, I think you probably know a lot. I think you can teach me some things.
No, I don't know about that, man. Tell me
I don't have much wisdom, my friend.
Tell me about what's the coolest thing if I visit Pittsburgh that I got to do there? I've driven through Pittsburgh. I've never actually been there more than a couple hours.
I'll hit you with a few. The Warhol Museum. The Warhol Museum is terrific. But the real thing is the ethnic neighborhoods, Italian neighborhoods, the Polish neighborhoods. That's where you'll get the real vibe of Pittsburgh. Good people, hardworking people. And when you come to Pittsburgh, of course, you're going to call me in, and we're going to make your 2 hours very special, I promise you.
Absolutely. We'll go rock away somewhere, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, we got some great venues and great young bands out there, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you guys ever do, I always offer for charities to do like free concerts or gigs. So if you guys ever have anything for that charity, definitely hit me up, man.
Oh, we will 100%. I'm excited to send you the information.
All right, John. All right, we're going to hear your song right now, and I want to thank you wholeheartedly for being on the show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your support of independent artists.
Oh, you're welcome, John. Have a great night, buddy. Bye.
All righty. God bless. Bye-bye.
All right.
Pictures of pictures and pictures of frames, looking through lenses for a sparkle of flame. If I can see a love that looks like success, then maybe next time I won't make such a mess. Searching for something with no shame and no blame, a picture perfect love that's not just a game. Like in a movie on a bench in the park, thought I could find the look of love from afar. Then into focus, much to my surprise, there stood an angel looking into my eyes. Pictures of paintings, I put love in a frame. From that perspective, it just isn't the same as being there and seeing how hard I fell, catching my breath between heaven and hell. Love can be frightening, but it's beautiful too. Rainbows and lightning between me and you. In the park, thought I could find a look of love from afar. Then into focus, much to my surprise, there stood an angel looking into my eyes. Like in a movie on a bench in the park, thought I could find a look of love from afar. Then into focus, much to my surprise, there stood an angel looking into my eyes. Rainbows and lightning, rainbows and lightning, rainbows and lightning, rainbows and lightning. Sun comes up, I pray to be a better man. As the storm clouds form above, lightning strikes again. All that's left is a barren wasteland from the pain and baggage.
Well, I have to say the music tonight, some of the listeners are commenting online, has been absolutely wonderful. Definitely I can sense that 60s vibe and that rock and roll. So before I leave you with one of my songs, which is also one of my favorite rock songs called Nothing to Hide, I want to again thank both guests for being on the show tonight. I want to thank all the listeners. I love your comments. Please keep them coming in. I try to ask all the guests any of your questions that I can squeeze in there. To any listeners who may be artists, if you want to be on this Songwriter Show, please shoot me an email. Check us out online. I want to thank you all for listening again, and I hope your own story gets heard around the world. My name is Sarantos, and please join us every Tuesday night so you can hear other amazing artists share their fascinating, behind-the-scenes, raw, down-to-earth stories right here on the Songwriter Show. Have a great night, everybody.
The stairs, staring at the dark. Wonder if I made a mistake from the very start. It seemed so right way back when. Didn't realize I did everything she said. What kind of life am I choosing to live? What kind of lover doesn't like to give? How can I change her back into what she used to be? It's what I want nothing to hide. At what point did I simply lose control? Woke up each morning, losing my soul. When you stop believing, it's never something good. When you start to wonder, that's when you should. What kind of life am I choosing to live? What kind of lover doesn't like to give? When did I make such a big mistake? It's what I want nothing to hide. Staring at the wall, nothing left to feel. I will take it like a man to run and hide. What kind of life am I choosing to live? What kind of lover doesn't like to give? When did I make such a big mistake? It's what I want nothing to hide. How can I change her back into what she used to be? It's what I want nothing to hide.
Thank you for listening to The Songwriter Show. To keep the momentum going, head over to www.songwritershow.com and join our free music community of artists, songwriters, and producers. That's www.songwritershow.com.